everyone into the first episode of the Next Shift podcast here in the new year of 2026. Kenny, how was your new year and holidays?
Busy. A lot of Bridgeport stuff, a lot of World Junior stuff. Feels like I've been watching 6 games a day here, but it finally came to a close. Islanders prospects did very well, so it's been a good few weeks for sure. How about you? How has it been going for you?
Dude, I probably watch just as many all the time. I mean, I love the new multi-view that ESPN has with the multiple boxes. So, but tonight's episode could not be more thrilled for. He is actually a repeat guest for me. But today we are having on. I want to welcome the one and only. There's the button, Mr. Julian McKenzie from The Athletic. SDP's The CJ Show. Julian, thank you so much for jumping on. I know we're catching a busy time of the schedule for the Ottawa Senators, but the rare off day. Thank you so much for coming on.
I don't know if off days actually exist, to be quite honest with you. Thanks so much for having me, guys.
Probably not.
No. Thanks so much for having me, guys. Appreciate it.
So much to go over. I'm doing well. Thank you so much again for coming on. Kenny, this is the first time you've chatted with Julian.
Yes, it is, and I'm not very well versed in the Senator stuff, so there was definitely some research. A very interesting time right now for the Senators. I'm sure the fans don't find it as interesting as it's.
They find it very interesting. I would push back and say they absolutely do. This is very interesting for them. This is what happens when you have expectations. This is a fan base where I get there are older fans who remember the early 2000s teams where they were going to the playoffs all the time. But for a fan base that has endured a rebuild where they were out of the playoffs for 8 years and then they make the playoffs and now they're fighting to get back in. They're outside of that playoff picture right now. They're very interested about what's going on right now. It's a very interesting time.
Yeah. What are you hearing on Linus Ullmark? I know there's not a lot out there right now, and obviously I'm sure you probably don't have a lot more that you can tell us, but we are very heavily followed by Bruins fans who still have interest in the former Bruins goaltender.
It's tough to say what it is with the fact that he's on leave for personal reasons. The biggest thing I could just say right now is the sooner he's back for the Ottawa Senators, you have to hope it's the better for their goaltending situation. I understand he has not been consistent for his group for a good chunk of his time as an Ottawa Senator. But last year in December, he found a way to put a good stretch of games together. This year, up until he left, he was starting to do the same thing in December. And we're still waiting to hear on when actually he'll be back. There's been a lot of rumors about him possibly being at the game on Monday to watch his team in action and him possibly skating. It's tough to confirm. The Sens are declining comment on stuff like that. But the sooner they have him back, the better. But also just the fact that this has been a situation, and even the fact he hasn't been consistent, that just speaks to a really wild storyline with this group where goaltending has been the biggest thing that's let them down throughout this season. If you go back through the rebuilding years, goaltending has also been a problem, and they really thought Linus Ullmark would be the answer to that problem. But as I mentioned before, the fact that he hasn't been consistent enough, it looms large for this team. But the fact that right now the Ottawa Senators are down to Levi Merilainen, who I think did enough last year to prove that he's a number 2 goaltender, but I think he still needs a little bit more seasoning. And Hunter Shepard, who is very limited in his NHL experience. You need goaltending help, and if you're Steve Staios and you feel that, as he told us in the media, that you're confident in your goaltending depth as it is, you call up Matt Sogard from the AHL too, and his numbers in the AHL haven't been that great, and you feel you might not need to make a move. You're wondering when you're getting Linus Ullmark back. That's the big thing.
I mean, I'm sure I speak for most Bruins fans. If you want, you can have Korpisalo back. We won't even charge you much for him. I don't know if that'll help you or not, but you're more than welcome to have him back.
I don't know if there's a take backsies on that trip.
No, not the trade. Just the one part. You guys can have him back.
You just gonna give him up just like that?
I don't think many Bruins fans would get pushback on that.
Oh boy. Oh boy. Anyway.
Yeah. What about you though? You're not many Bruins fans. You're very opinionated on this. So are you keeping Korpisalo?
Oh, me?
Yeah.
I would charge for
He just wanted to give him away. I don't think he necessarily wants to keep Jonas Korpisalo.
Well, hey, listen. At the end, he added most Bruins fans, which makes me think maybe that.
I think he was just being cordial. I think he was just being neutral. I mean, I can't speak for you, Chris, but I get the sentiment. Maybe you don't want him back.
I would say
you would rather another alternative.
We at least have to start with the ever popular player to be named later. Future considerations.
Can't be doing him dirty like that, man. He's trying his best.
No, I know. I know. And let's be honest, if the Bruins weren't giving up so many high danger chances, they would have better goaltending numbers all around. So, but I mean, you can speak from a team that's looking for goaltending help. Imagine if you had someone like Korpisalo, even, I don't want to say as bad as he's been, but as bad as the numbers look, I'm sure you guys would rather turn the net over to him than the situation you have right now.
I just think the Sens would be at least sort of better off with having a veteran presence, to your point. Yeah, like if they had someone who has NHL experience, can be used for a limited run of games until you get Omar back. If it comes to that, maybe it gets to a point where you might not need to wait that long. Who knows? But yeah, I think just having another guy where if you find yourself in a situation like that again, whether it's Linus Ullmark isn't playing well or if he has to be away for whatever reason comes up, you don't find yourself in a situation like now where you're pressing Levi Merilainen to do well and you're hoping that the backup behind him is able to hold down the fort too. I think the goaltending depth, maybe compared to some other teams, I wouldn't necessarily say it's the greatest on paper with the Ottawa Senators.
Yeah, and being, well, you guys are 2 points ahead of Buffalo right now? Or no, Columbus. Buffalo went ahead of you guys in this last 10-game win streak for them.
Just absolutely wild, but good for Buffalo that they were able to do this. I'm tired of this team losing every year. I'm tired of them being in the basement. A lot of Sens fans are actually happy for Josh Norris, who was on the other side of the Dylan Cousins trade in March. So, well, I don't think they're going to be too happy if this Buffalo Sabres run ultimately is what propels them into the playoffs over the Sens. I think there will be a great subsection of fans who will be happy to see Josh Norris play for a playoff team, considering what he went through with the Sens organization.
I'm curious your thoughts. We hear a lot of, I guess complaining would probably be the best way to put it, about the East versus the West as far as how the teams look. I mean, I think most of the teams in the Eastern Conference are over 500, whereas all the ones in the West, there's a lot more disparity. I'm curious your thoughts. Does the East just suck, or is it true parity?
I mean,
because when you have true parity, this is the kind of standings that you would see in theory.
I mean, look, I think there's some good teams in this Eastern Conference that once they make the playoffs, you can't really count them out, right? Tampa seems to get the benefit of the doubt every year, even though they haven't really gone on a run in a while. But when you have the quality of players they have and the coaching that they have, there's a reason why you give them that respect. Look at all the goal differentials of teams in the Eastern Conference, where you have, I think, only two teams in the Atlantic Division as we speak have positive goal differentials. It's the Ottawa Senators at +2, and then the Tampa Bay Lightning at +32. That's a damn good team they have over there in Tampa that's well coached. That's an example of a team in the Eastern Conference that you see them in the playoffs, you're going to look at them as a good team. The Carolina Hurricanes have found ways to get to the third round, and if it wasn't for the Florida Panthers, maybe there would be a Stanley Cup playoff run in the final for that group. And as I was making the point just a couple minutes ago before we got on with a couple friends, the Florida Panthers, who right now are outside of a playoff spot, they're inevitable. Once Matthew Tkachuk gets healthy, once Sasha Barkov finds a way to get healthy, that's a group that once they make the playoffs, it doesn't matter if they're a wild card team. People are going to look at them as a favorite in almost every series that they play because they know exactly what you're supposed to do in the postseason. I get we look at the standings. There's 82 games for each team. That's what we go off of. And then you got the 2 months of the playoffs, which are random as hell. But there's some good teams in that Eastern Conference. There is parity there. You're right. But, I mean, aside from Colorado, I mean, look, there's some good teams in the Western Conference too. it's very likely we could see a year where maybe Colorado gets the job done, or maybe Minnesota or Dallas, whatever. But don't be surprised if that Eastern Conference finalist is a Tampa or a Carolina or Florida this year, because those teams are still damn good.
Yeah, Carolina is the one that I really hope it's not, because if it is, we won't hear anything other than Brandon Bussey talk around here.
Another one.
So, but the main reason why we're glad to have you on, you have made a great accomplishment. You have a book coming out, which I just got my copy of today.
Yes,
so
sir.
Thank you in advance for that one.
Thank you for asking for one, man.
Absolutely. I've as I was telling you earlier, I've already read through 2 of the chapters here.
You're a speed reader. Those 2 chapters were like, in terms of like the Aginlo one especially, like I think that's like the most words of all of them.
I and the forward, by the way. The forward was very well written from Jerome as well.
Shout out Jerome.
And in all the nicest ways. I mean, it's a quick read. Like it keeps you know what I mean? Like the stories are flowing from one to the other.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like
yeah.
And I'm not a reader. You know,
that's great. That's awesome. I'm glad that's the effort. That's the effect. That's awesome.
Well, for Christmas, my parents got me Rick Westhead's We Breed Lions.
I started
and
that.
When I opened it, my daughter goes, "Wait, he got a book?" My 16-year-old daughter goes, "Wait, he got a book?" And I went, "Yeah," and I got another one coming. She's like, "What?" So,
Andy, what books are you reading?
College books. That's what it is.
Studying.
Textbooks is what I'm reading, unfortunately.
What are you studying?
Sports management. I'm in college right now, taking winter courses.
What school are you at?
I'm at Gateway. It's community college. I'm in my 2nd year. So if you have any recommendations for transfer, I'm taking all in any right now.
Good transfer? Are you trying to hit the portal? What's going on?
I'm looking for more money. I'm at what?
You trying to get an NIL deal? What is this?
Yeah.
His NIL deal will be for $1.50.
Oh yeah.
Or sorry, it'll be about $3.50.
Oh my God. This NIL portal stuff is crazy. We have kids in I don't know what Gateway is, but we have kids community college doing everything they can to get in the portal, man. It's insane. Not even just athletes anymore. We have podcasters trying to get NIL money. This is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Was like that when I was going to school, Chris.
I know, right? I'm gonna lose them over $1.75.
Come on, that's crazy. Anyway.
No, like I said, I mean it in all the greatest ways. Like it's quick. You get through like I call them chapters, but each one is its own story, which is awesome. You know, like I've read the Willie O'Ree one, which, you know, as a Bruins fan, can't appreciate it enough because you hear about him, you know what everything he's done, the legend that he is within the organization, but like to go through what he went through to just get there. And you always forget, based on how, like, you know, his numbers retired, all that stuff, how short his career really was.
Oh yeah. Like it's actually funny because I think of, before I did this project, I think of like, oh, he played the first game, and then he ends up going back to the minors. But then you look at like how long his pro career actually was. Like that surprised me more than anything. That and his very like small but still significant relationship with Jackie Robinson. That surprised me more than anything in the research for this, where I was just like, oh wow, I had no idea he ever encountered the man who broke the color barrier in baseball. And like years after the fact, like Jackie Robinson goes up to him, he's like, hey, I remember you. Like that to me, in researching for this book and researching on Willie O'Ree, like that surprised me more than anything. That was such a cool story and tidbit to add to his chapter. That was really cool. But yeah, I think for a project like this, while I did want to focus a lot on, you know, players of the current gen and previous generations, the more I was really thinking about it, the more I thought there's no way you could do a project like this without Willie O'Ree. I just think he's too important to Black players and to the history of the NHL, period, to not have in a project like this. So I'm happy you enjoyed it.
So real quick, I'm getting I'm still catching it from the chat from Dom, a former co-host on What's Brewing.
Chris reading. What is this?
I thought all he read was Twitter.
That is crazy. What's going
on? No, Dom's fantastic. I don't know how familiar with Dom's work you are, but Dom.hockey, shout out to Dom. He does a bunch of Bruins prospects coverage and whatnot. So Dom,
I only know Dom the Shizen at my shop. So sorry, I gotta get more familiar. My bad, man.
Every time I hear of Dom from The Athletic, every time I hear Dom, I think Dom Tiano.
Okay.
So
I think Dom L.
Yep. I know Kenny's got a few questions for you, but the first one I have is because you mentioned the research into this.
Yeah.
How long did this take for you to put together before even having the remnants of the book itself?
Man, I would say that it took me, almost 2 years, really, because I started maybe late 2023 with pitching the idea, starting to talk to people. November 2023 was when I was at an event in Alberta where Canada Post was unveiling the stamp commemorating Willie O'Ree, and that's where I started talking to people like Sarah Nurse and George LaRocque, and Anson Carter was there too. Grant Fuhrer was there as well. And I know I wrote an article about the event, but also some of those conversations ended up being a foundation for that Willie O'Ree chapter. So from then on, you're trying to go to those players and be like, hey, like I'd like to do a project that's a little bit bigger than what I'm working on right now. Are you interested in being in the book? And I think at that point I'd already reached out to Jerome McGinley, and that was fear inducing. But when he agreed to be a part of the Black Aces project, that set the tone, because I knew I couldn't do a project without his involvement. And then after that, it was just trying to secure interviews with as many other people as I could. And not even just the players profiled in the book, but some of the other stories that are told in the book too, on players like Alayla Edwards, or even just writing about Val James. I didn't get Val James directly for this, but that's someone who I wanted included. But also getting people to talk about some of these main focal points of the book, like getting time with Sidney Crosby, talking to insiders like Elliot Friedman and Chris Johnston. Like that meant a lot. I would say a better part of 2 years, almost 2 years, to put all of that together, just interviewing people, researching, reading articles, reading books. Like it was a lot of work and a lot of note taking and a lot of rewriting in certain points too, and some extra chapters here and there. But I'm very proud of the work I was able to put together. I'm really happy about it.
Yeah, Kenny, I know you had some, you should be. I can't wait to dive more into it. I know Kenny had a couple other questions about the book itself, and I have a few as well. But Kenny, I don't want you to sit there in silence just because you don't have a copy of it in front of you. What questions have you got for him?
Well, at first, I want to know kind of where this idea came about. I feel like it's very interesting. I love it. It's just, you hear hockey is for everyone, but, what does that really mean? You see stuff on Twitter all the time. You see how hockey is a very closed off world, especially if you played early on, just how the locker rooms are and all that. So I would love to know kind of how that idea came about.
I got approached by an agent about writing a book after I wrote a column about Bill Peters getting an opportunity to coach in the NHL again in 2023. For those who are not as familiar with the story, he was dismissed from his job with the Calgary Flames after it came out that he had racially abused Akeem Aliu when he was coaching him in the AHL. And when he surfaced with a Western Hockey League team, I wrote about it in the fact that while he might have taken certain steps to be able to get back into the WHL, he ultimately didn't apologize to Akeem for what he did. And ultimately it was just a column about how racism is still able to thrive in hockey spaces. And I got approached about writing a book, and I didn't know what to do immediately. But then after a couple of weeks, I thought, well, there have been people who have written books before where they've highlighted Black hockey accomplishments, but those books have been pretty small. Maybe you profile maybe 2 or 3 people. So I just thought, well, I don't know if there's a book out there where there's been as many people as I've profiled in Black Aces. So I figured, hey, maybe that's a good idea. And then the idea got pitched, and next thing you know, I'm trying to talk to players for the book. So yeah, that's basically how the idea came about.
Wow.
How did you narrow it down to these, what is it, 16 people?
So yeah, 16. I mean, unless it's like there's a chapter I'm missing, but yeah, 16 chapters. And again, there are other stories spread out throughout the book too, featuring different people. Like Mike Greer's mentioned, obviously, the time the Tampa Bay Lightning iced three black skaters to start off a game. That's also mentioned in the Herb Carnegie chapter. Like EJ Emery telling a story about how Willie O'Ree was a player he'd love to play with. If he could choose any player in the history of the NHL to play with, Willie O'Ree would be his guy. Like there's also little stories like that. How I narrowed it down to 16 players essentially. Part of it is just, I guess, prominence. Like I mentioned before, like you can't do a book like this without mentioning Willie O'Ree. That's how I felt about Angela James too, even though I wasn't able to get her directly for this, but I still very much wanted her in this project. I thought just popularity of players too. So guys like a Jerome McGinley, guys like a Georges Laraque, Anson Carter was also a fan favorite. Like I thought that would also make a lot of sense. But I also thought it was cool to profile people like Dante Abercrombie or Tony McKegney or Kelsey Kozler, players who are not as well known when you think of black hockey people and black hockey players. And I think their stories are still worth telling and still worth knowing about. I just thought, hey, it would be cool to have a combination of all those factors that I mentioned. And even if I'm not able to go in deep on every single black player, like I've had people ask me over the last how many months, why didn't you include this person? Why not that person? Hopefully I was still able to cover as many bases as I could. And hey, if you read this book and you find you find that the player you want isn't represented, I mean, the fact that you have an interest in knowing about them more, I think that's still a win in itself, right? It still goes a long way in terms of encouraging diversity for the game. So yeah, I hope that answers the question.
Absolutely, yeah. And like you said, it's if there's anybody, I mean, you kind of open the door for someone to write a sequel.
Maybe it's me. I don't know.
Maybe it's you. Maybe when he's
cool.
reading the textbooks, it's Kenny. Great question from Dom though. I'm pretty sure it is. Is the book available on Amazon? Where can he get it in Canada?
Amazon, Indigo, support your local bookstore if you can. You can go to your bookstore and be like, hey man, can I pre-order this book? Basically like wherever you can get books, you can get a copy of the book. Triumph Books is the publisher I'm working with for this project. And they also, you can buy the book off of them as well. So yeah, wherever you can get books, get Black Aces, including Amazon.
And for those who are more like me and don't tend to read, will there be an audio version?
That depends on how many people buy the book. That depends on how many. Why do you think I'm doing these interviews, Chris?
I just thought it was because you liked us.
Proof of concept. Yeah, in all seriousness, that's still to be determined. But I do think that preliminary interest in the book before it comes out will help make the case for an audiobook. I've seen people ask about whether or not there should be an audiobook. I very much want there to be an audiobook. So let's see if we can get more people to buy the book.
I'm hoping we do.
Me too, man. I wouldn't I love this thing, so I wouldn't mind spending time reading chapters for it.
Well, I know I got plenty more questions for you, but Kenny, what else you got over there?
Yeah, so I mean, like Chris said, he's not a big book reader. I think when I go and look for books, I look at the first thing that stands out, and that's obviously the cover. I think this cover is awesome. It's very sleek. This is definitely a book that I would pull off the shelf and at least take a look, because I'm like, damn, that's sick. How did you think of this? Did you think of this? Did you have any say in the cover? I'm sure you did as an author. Like, how did that come about?
Yeah, I had a little bit of say. The publisher I'm working with had a concept, and immediately I was pretty hooked by it. Just like I love the typeface for Black Aces. Like I love that font. So already I was hooked. And then we were trying to figure out the different players we wanted featured on the front. And ultimately we realized having Sarah and Jerome and just dressed in red, it was like, to be real with you, we just wanted to follow the color scheme going on. And for Kevin Weeks, who's featured prominently in the book too, it just made a lot of sense to have him on the front too. just a good mixture of past and present players. Yeah, I'm glad you like the cover. I really like it too. So yeah, that's as far as it went in terms of figuring out the cover. That was something we talked about, me and my editor, for a couple weeks.
Yeah, it definitely stands out in all the right ways, and it's definitely one that when it's on that table, at the bookstores, I'm sure people will be picking up a lot of. So,
man, I hope so.
Whose story really caught you off guard, if that makes sense?
Ooh, caught me off guard.
It could be a positive or a negative. Like you just either didn't know it about that person, something they might have gone through, or maybe you did know and you just didn't realize how deep something ran for him, that kind of thing.
I guess it's the Herb Carnegie story, because for people who don't know who he is, that's a player who I think many people, if you look through the history of the game, you look through his numbers, that's probably the best Black player, at least during his time, to have never made it to the National Hockey League. And that's someone who endured racism growing up from his childhood on to when he tried to play professional hockey and it just didn't work out for him just because of whatever hurdles. And one story that I always think of with Herb is when he was growing up in Toronto and he played for a team, and they had a practice at the Maple Leaf Gardens. And it just so happened that members of the Toronto Maple Leaf staff were in attendance that day for that practice. And Conn Smythe, who runs everything for the Leafs at that time, he sees her practice, and obviously he's amazed and wowed by what he sees. And he tells a coach, who then tells Herb that if they found a way to turn Herb white, they'd find a way to put him on the Maple Leafs the next day. Which, like, obviously you hear that comment offhand, you're like, wow, that's a really weird thing to say. But what really floored me was finding an interview years after the fact, when Herb was still alive. Elliot Friedman interviewed him for CBC, and like, it's one thing to revisit stuff like that and to show that you're hurt, but if you can find the interview on YouTube right now, but Herb is crying when he's going through those words, and he's like openly like going to Elliot Friedman and be like, if you heard that, like, what would you do? And he's like, he's bawling. Like his daughter goes to console him, and to see that someone who carved out a legacy for themselves, even though they didn't make it to the NHL, in their old age, they were still hurt by those comments. Like, that really resonated for me. Like, that really made me feel something, angry, if anything, and sad for Herb. So I felt it was something that had to be highlighted in his story. While like, I know we're going to talk about all these players that we've seen play that are huge parts of our childhood. I mean, Joe McKenzie was a Boston Bruin, so Bruins fans, I'm sure they remember him very fondly. But
I still remember the trade that didn't happen. All right,
I wrote about that trade. I get it, but Herb Carnegie is someone who, and I mean, I don't know how many people are realizing this, but this is the shirt I'm wearing of him right now. Herb Carnegie is someone whose story is worth learning about, and it's a good thing that he is in the Hockey Hall of Fame now, even though he didn't make it to the NHL. But yeah, that's probably the story of all of them that I wrote about that maybe floored me the most. There's some honorable mentions, like learning about Blake Bolden's backstory was really cool. Georges Laraque's story, I think, is parts heartbreaking but also inspiring. But definitely Herb Carnegie, that story for me, that was I'm proud that I got to read it, and I was happy to get his daughter Bernice her blessing to have that chapter come to light.
Can't wait to read that one.
Yeah.
Kenny, you got?
Yeah, I mean, something that you guys are talking about are players from different generations. So I'm curious if you noticed any common experiences, or did the challenges evolve over time?
Definitely, like, I mean, the fact that a lot of these players, they try to play hockey, and a lot of times they're the only Black player playing, and someone at some point in their life is coming up to them being like, well, why do you want to get into the sport? Like, Black people don't play hockey. Like Jerome McGinley, that's something that I know he went through George LaRock, that's another example of a player who went through something like that as well. There are a lot of players who went through stuff like that. And I think to see that players, particularly George and Jerome, and you can lump in Kevin into this too, players of that generation who they end up playing the game and they end up being examples for the generations that come after them. And particularly with Kevin, who ends up holding his own hockey camp. And there are players who have come up after that. I think guys like PK Subban and Wayne Simmons who were able to take part in that camp. Like, that paves a way. I mean, people love to dunk on the phrase representation matters, but it does. Because if you see people who look like you who are doing something, you feel you have a chance at making it in that. And I get it. Like, you need people who are going to be the first ones, regardless of representation, to kind of start that path. But I think that's a way for more and more people to get encouraged. But that's how I would answer that.
It's funny that you say that, because when I got the hard copy, I was looking through it, and of course you mentioned PK Subban, and there was a part in there. I'm trying to find it real quick, but a line popped out to me where someone had said something, made a comment to him about his hair.
Mm.
And I didn't read the full thing. Obviously, I'm not at PK's story yet. But you're talking about representation, and it seemed like that really kind of summarized what you're talking about, in that even just the way, or maybe it wasn't Subban, maybe it was
could have been Anson. I mean, but also at the same
maybe
time,
it was
like
Anson Carter's.
But also, like, I mean, PK is not someone exempt from talking about hockey hair, right? Like, that's not something that gets talked about enough or at all in the context of hockey, like black hockey hairstyles, right? Like Anson Carter having an afro, or Jabril Toure, the Sens prospect, who has braids and he wore a do-rag on top of that. Like, how do people who predominantly talk about hockey even have those conversations? That's not something. White people talking about black hair is like a whole discussion topic in itself. Like, I've had so many experiences. I don't have like dreads or anything like that. I just have this short hair most of my life, but I've had so many people like try to like tap on my head, be like, oh, like, you don't have hair. Like, the idea of those discussions coming up in hockey, when that happens en masse, that is going to be an interesting day. But yes, hockey hair, Anson Carter for sure comes up. I think of George LaRock too, as well, with the dreads that he was able to wear during his time in the league too. Like, that's a huge part of the identity of a black hockey player and of black people, period. So yeah, I definitely have a mention of that in I think in the Anson Carter
I think it was
chapter. Yeah. So I think for that, like, it was definitely something worth getting into. I think I might have mentioned Subban when it comes to hair too. But yeah, like, it's very much a talking point.
Yeah, Subban's known for the outfits more than, well, the hair can be part of the outfit, but yeah, I think
sure.
I think there was also mention of, was it Anthony Duclair when he signed in New York, when he just cut his hair, like, and I remember when that story came about, and I'm like, are we, like, just let him wear his hair however he wants? What if he just wanted to cut it? Like,
yeah, I to clarify too, and I made sure to ask Anthony about it. He knew what he was signing up for when he signed with the Islanders, and he had to do that. I do remember the outrage. I do remember kind of being part of that outrage too, and not to speak for him, but yeah, like, why can't you just wear the hairstyle that you want? And that goes for anybody, right? Like, I remember making that point about Anthony Duclair, and someone said, "Oh, well, where were you when Kyle Palmieri had to do the same thing and shave his beard?" Or they mentioned some other player. And I was like, yeah, we talked about Kyle Palmieri years ago. Like, look, I get rules are rules. I get you want players to show up in a certain way, but that was just a rule I knew I disagreed with. Sorry, Lou. Like, Lou Lamoriello, those are his rules, but also I'm allowed to disagree with them, just like many people also do too.
Yeah, I mean, it's nowadays it's like people having a tattoo where they work, you know, some places just, you can't have it. Like, you know, Kenny, before we get to your next question, I love Dom's question here from viewing. He mentions Willie O'Ree doing all the work that he does for inclusiveness, and he does a great job with it, as Dom points out. But at some point, because Willie O'Ree is getting up there in age, someone's going to have to take over that mantle. Who did you find might be someone who stood out as that player or personality who could take that role over?
That's a great question. And the fact that Willie O'Ree is up there in age, I believe he just turned 90. Like, if you want to continue the efforts of making the sport and the NHL more accessible, losing a figure like Willie O'Ree, that hurts for you, right? Because that's a point of reference for so many people. You probably have to look within your player inclusion coalition, which was formed a couple of years ago and has players like Anson Carter and PK Subban involved, and maybe your successor is there. Is it another popular figure like a George Laraque, who I think is also part of that coalition too, if memory serves? Like, I think you ultimately have to consider somebody, but also maybe you can't just replace that one personality. Maybe it's just a committee thing, and you find a way to lean on that inclusion committee to do a lot of that work. I do think it's a great question by Dominic, because death comes for us all, unfortunately, but once we lose Willie O'Ree, that's a pillar that's gone. That's a builder for this sport who will be gone. And it would be good to see someone take up that work.
I couldn't even imagine, and it's not even a question I would have thought of. I can't thank Dom for the question enough, because like you said, he is getting up there in age. So, at some point, like you said, it gets us all. So, and he does do a lot of work. So it's definitely something worth, I know I only work in a bank, but like, I can't tell you how many times we have to have conversations with people where it's like, this parent is late 90s. Like, they don't have anyone helping them with their account. Like, you need to set something up, because it's going to happen at some point, whether it's now or 5 years from now or 10 years from now. Like, you hope it goes as long as it can, but you got to put some preparation in there. Sorry, Kenny. I know I didn't mean to down us with death talk here, but
no, you're good. So I have a prospect question. So if you have any more about the book, you can take it, or
I could talk to him about the book all day.
Yeah. So
what's the prospect question?
Well, like I said, showed my ignorance towards the Ottawa Senators earlier when I was like, well, whatever. I'm blanking right now. That's how tired I am. But I wanted to ask about a specific player who it has a very interesting season right now, that being Vladimir Nikitin, talking about the goaltending side, jumping from going from the USHL to the NAHL, now to the KHL. Is there any plan to bring him over? How does that really work with the teams as well? Are teams kind of picking out places for their players to play when they're in a situation like this, where they're not getting playing time, or they're not in a league that the team feels that they should be in? How does that all kind of work out? And have you heard anything about that?
I haven't heard anything specifically with Vladimir, more than just that's a player that seems like a long-term prospect. That's not to say there's no future for him. He's only 20 years old. There's obviously still time for him to get better and learn the game. But I think the fact that they saw a lot of raw potential in him when they drafted him, obviously they got a direct look at him at the World Juniors last year, that could serve to bode well for him. The fact that he's kind of bounced around from the USHL to the NAHL, I'm not sure exactly how that bodes for his chances, but this guy's still 20 years old. As far as I know, he's still under contract, or at least just under the Sens fold. Like, that's still someone that they could see value in, and for his sake, you hope he gets a little bit more settled in his new spot. But I don't know if this is a guy. I don't know if you're thinking like, hey, is this a guy you're thinking of bringing up like right away? Maybe, maybe not. But I do think with where the Sens are at right now with their goaltending depth, I think if I'm the Sens, like, I'm okay with Nikitin just getting a little bit more seasoning before you call him up and you bring him up to the pro game.
Yeah, so the thing is right, he's 20 years old and he's playing in the KHL, not really playing. He hasn't played. I feel like when you have a player, when you're, raw like that, you just want him to get game action.
Yeah.
So I'm not necessarily saying that you bring him over and you have him play in the professional ranks. Do teams kind of pick places, make calls to maybe junior teams, or like, hey, do you have a spot for this guy? Can he play? Can he be a backup? Can he do this? Like, I mean, I know you said you didn't hear anything about that, but is that something that maybe they look into the future? Like how much do teams have power kind of over that, asking different junior teams or wherever, maybe college, what do you have a spot open for this guy? Do you have this? Do you have that?
I think for like players in terms of like where they want to play, particularly with college, I don't know how much sway they have with that, but obviously once they get to those spots, they obviously want to see that their guys are playing and they very much monitor that. I couldn't speak to how much they get involved in terms of like calling a team and be like, hey, why isn't our guy playing? But it's definitely something that they are mindful of. Like, I don't know if it's a situation where like Nikitin, I don't know if they're a spoon feed to give like teams in the KHL or other leagues to put him in necessarily. But I would think that once you know a guy is able to bounce around, I have to think that there's some guidance with Vladimir in this case where you want him to develop and you want him to play on a team. You want to be on a spot where he plays somewhere. I couldn't speak specifically in the case of Vladimir on that, but at the same time, like this is a prospect in the system where they feel that with goaltending, obviously, I think just generally with Sens prospects, they need somebody to hit. And for a guy like Vladimir, who, again, a long-term prospect, like they have every reason to kind of oversee every part of his development to get to the next level.
As you guys were talking, Jambi jumped in, and it's funny because he's a Red Wings and Bruins fan.
Are you allowed to be both?
I think so, at least right now, because one's good and the other one's not, and it just kind of goes back and forth apparently as to which one's which.
I didn't know you could do that. That's crazy.
I don't know. Great guy though. It's funny because we were talking about Linus Ullmark earlier, but he did have a question before on the last topic, asking if you feel like there's a glass ceiling that the NHL still hasn't broken when it comes to the inclusivity.
Probably the LGBTQIA community. I mean, as of right now, there's only one openly gay player in North American hockey, which is Luke Prokop. And we're at a point now where, I mean, let alone for people of that community who want to be themselves in hockey spaces, like we're in a point now where even people from racialized communities might have to think twice about that. Or really just anybody, really, right? Like, I don't know if you guys saw the Zane Perret comments, the Team Canada defenseman from the World Juniors who, openly said like, hey, he has people out in Calgary who are telling him, hey, like, these are certain things you should say, but he doesn't want to be a robot. And then the very next day he has to kind of come back and apologize for that. Well, I understand on one hand, like, you don't want to go beyond what your teammates tell you and they're trying to show you the way. I think the fact that he made a comment where he clearly wanted to show like, hey, like I want to actually show my personality and not just be someone who just says these boilermade quotes or boilerplate quotes and basic milquetoast quotes and whatever and be a robot. Like the fact that that's a point of contention for anybody, like that just goes to show how much the sport has to go to get out of that conservative nature. So I think the fact that we are in that, it makes it very difficult for a lot of people to kind of showcase who they really want to be. And going further beyond that, the fact that I'm basing this off of a story I wrote the other day on the Heated Rivalry show that everyone's talking about in hockey and how that spurred a lot of conversations about how gay people or queer people feel in hockey spaces. Like, you can say all you want about the people who have tried to make the sport more inclusive in that regard or have been able to do things like what Bane Pettinger is able to do as a player agent, a gay player agent. This is still a sport where people from that community do not feel welcome, do not feel safe, and they would much rather not pay attention to the NHL or go to the PWHL, where they see more people who look like them in games and in stands as opposed to going to an NHL game. So I think in terms of a glass ceiling, so to speak, it's probably that world.
Yeah, I remember it's been a few years now since the
with the Pride jerseys,
the Pride jerseys. That's where I was going with that. Yeah. And that whole thing became and I remember when that story completely blew up, and I'm just like, if someone goes to the game, like, just go and enjoy the game. Like it is, but it's not that deep. Like, You
It
know what I
turned
mean?
into what's unfortunate about that situation is that it turned into, for lack of a better term, a witch hunt about who was not going to wear a Pride jersey. And that's not
Right.
what it should have been. And I know people are going to hear that and they're going to be like, oh, well, it's the media's job to focus on good stories, even. But also think about the culture of hockey where everyone unites together, they're a family, and they do everything together. The idea of individuality is sort of repressed. You mean to tell me that we were going to ignore people like Ivan Provorov, who all of a sudden were going to be like, you know what? I'm not going to follow in line with everybody else. I'm going to do something different. Like, there was no way we were ever going to ignore that story. And it's unfortunate because while I do understand people have beliefs or whatever, like, I think that for something like this, it was a little disappointing, to be quite honest with you, to see people opt to not wear these jerseys, where all it is just a sign that, you know, you're making this space more welcome for people of that community. And I get that for some people it's a bit complicated, it essentially played a part into what we have today, where teams are not able to do anything for a specialty event, so to speak. So yeah, I think that event and the fact that we had Fried Tape also banned too, and then Travis Dermott defied the ban, and then they brought that back. Like, that just goes to show there's a very complicated history with the NHL, hockey as a whole, and the LGBTQ community. For sure, there absolutely is that.
Yeah, I remember, you know, when that whole thing was it Provorov who?
So it was Ivan Provorov who said that they didn't want to. They opted out of Pride Night, I believe, because of religious reasons.
Okay, because there was someone else who opted out of something.
There were other players. There were other players who opted out as well.
But I remember there was a Russian player who opted out of a specific night because of everything that was going on in Russia at the time. And it was one of those things where I remember looking at it going, if they're opting out for a reason that they don't feel their family would be safe, like, even if it's an excuse, you know, like, even if you don't want to believe them, like, that's the answer they gave. And to your point, it became a witch hunt about who's doing this and why. And yeah, it is the media's job to ask the question. Like, you know, I know John B is pointing out Provorov, Stahl, Reimer. Yeah. I know it was Reimer and Stahl were the two who were.
Yeah, Reimer was one of those players, because I remember after the fact we spoke to Nazem Kadri about it when I was still in Calgary about it, and he had his thoughts because they were teammates obviously in Toronto. So it was a really interesting story to cover, and it completely took away from the point of those nights, which is to make those spaces inclusive.
Yeah, and like you said, it's the media's job to go to the player and say, like, hey, you opted out of this. What was your reasoning? And if you have a follow-up question to it, like, okay, but to then make it more than just this is this player, and now all of a sudden this player speaks for everything else, and it blows everything else up. It's like, if you don't want to like a player because of an answer they gave to a question, because that's really what it comes down to, then you're not going to like the player. It doesn't matter what their follow-up answers are or anything like that. And guess what? You don't have to like every player across the league. That's the beauty of it. You don't have to.
Yeah.
So, you know, and I mean, think about it. How many fans don't like Vegas anymore because they signed one player? Or, you know, don't get me wrong, or Anaheim because they hire a coach. You know, if you don't want to root for that team, don't root for the team. There's 31 other teams that you can root for. There's how many players in the league now? 700-800 roughly.
I mean,
somewhere else.
I get what you're saying, but also, like, fans are fans for a reason. People like players and teams for certain reasons, right? They're allowed to feel disappointed if they realize that, like, you know what, this team or a player made a disappointing decision. Like, again, while I can, you know, yes, there were reasons why players opted out. Like, I think people are allowed to feel a certain way that that player didn't want to take part in a cause that might mean a lot to them. I think that's as simple as that. So yeah, I get what you're trying to say too, but I could also understand why people would be disappointed.
Oh yeah, for sure. Dom jumping back in wants to apologize to Sens fans because 15 years ago he was talking to a few of their scouts and insisted that they draft Shane Prince. So, and then John B adding, you mentioned Luke Prokop played for his hometown team and led MKE Pride Parade. So mentioning him being a great ambassador, and apparently the dual fandom is a family thing. So
okay, that's
I guess we can allow it to slide. So,
this is what it is.
Wow, we're approaching an hour here. I can't believe it already. It's been a blast. What else would you add real quick just to bring it back to the book? To those who are maybe on the fence about getting the book because maybe they don't read or they whatever, what would you say to those people as to why they should read the book?
If I want them to get off the fence and buy the book, this is just my hope is that if you're somebody who, let's say for example, you're not into hockey, I would hope that the way I wrote it is in a way where it's not too inside baseball, not to use another sporting term, but I wanted to make it as accessible as I could for everybody. Because I know there's going to be a lot of people, particularly in my family or friends of mine, who do not watch hockey, whether at the same level that I do or at all. So I tried to make it as accessible as I could. So don't feel like if you don't know that much about hockey or if you don't know that much about the people who are profiled, that you can't read something like this. That's probably the best thing that I could say. But yeah, I think if you are someone who enjoys sports and enjoys learning about history and enjoys learning about different people, this is something that could be up your alley, whether you're a hockey fan or not. So yeah, that's what I would say to that.
Awesome. And Kenny, did you have anything else for Julian? I have one last thing for you, Julian, but I want to see if Kenny's got anything for you first.
Yeah, well,
do you have any other Vladimir Nikitin questions?
No, that one was definitely what out of left field.
That was like term. That of all things you could have asked me about. That was the last thing I expected you to ask me about. You're going to talk about prospects. I'm like, all right, you're going to ask about like Logan Hensler, who barely played at the World Juniors, Carter Yakubchuk, who's at the HL, he's hurt. Blake Montgomery was a reach you could have done. He's actually a black prospect who's playing college hockey right now. But nah, man, you're like, yo, I want to know about Vladimir Nikitin. That for me, I was just like, I did not expect that.
Yeah, I'm going to reach back to the 2023
7th round. That dude from Kazakhstan, I want to know about him. I couldn't believe that. I was like, what?
I was a big fan. I was
so ready for Blake Montgomery. You had no idea, bro. I was so ready.
I was a big fan of Nikitin during last year's World Juniors. I'll say that was a nice underdog story. So
it was cool. I liked his underdog story too. It was great to profile him too.
So Yakubchuk's still injured? Didn't he get injured against Bridgeport? And then
he got injured a couple weeks ago.
Wow.
Not exactly how long, but I've just been told it's just week to week right now.
Oh, yeah, wow. I remember. Well, so like I said, I'm a collectibles guy, and you've definitely won me over. I will be buying a copy of the book. I'm so excited to read this.
Thank you.
Like I said, I'm a collectibles person, so I'm wondering how I can get this thing signed, how I can put this thing on the mantle after I'm done reading it. That's my question.
That's a great question. We're gonna have to figure something out. Where are you based at?
Connecticut. Yeah.
I gotta find my way to Connecticut, I guess. I don't know. I gotta figure out a way there. I don't know if you send me a copy and I sign it and mail it to you back. I've never done anything like this before, so I'm trying. I've had a lot of people ask for signed copies, so I got to figure out a way to do that for everybody. But I'm sure through Chris we could figure something out.
You'll have to ask Steve all the do's and don'ts for book signings.
Yeah, that's That's probably a good idea. He's done this twice, so that's someone I should be asking questions for.
I am intrigued because Dom says he has a serious question, but he might.
What's the question? What's the question? Depends on the question. You might have to vet it first.
While I'm waiting to see what Dom's question is, the last time you were on the show, you ended by asking me a start bench cut.
Oh yeah, I did do that. You're gonna do it to me, are you? You're gonna do it?
I have two for you.
Oh boy.
But I do have Dom's question. He says, how do you feel about players supporting players that have been charged for sexual assault, even wrongly cleared?
Oh, that is a serious question indeed. How do I feel about that? I don't have an opinion on that. I don't. I do not have an opinion on that.
It's a great question.
It's the only thing I could say to that is I don't have an opinion on that. I don't have an opinion on that. I think that's obviously you're stemming from what's going on with Carter Hart. I would say to that is people have reasons to be angry over that case. And I understand that maybe it went the way that it did, but I think for topics like that, like
we'll talk when I'm done with this book.
Yeah, I don't think that's a very serious topic, and I don't want to make light of anything.
No, absolutely
like
not. It's a good question though.
I get it, but like I think there's reasons why people would feel angry for that, and I think people have every reason to feel angry about that. That's as much as I'll say to that.
Absolutely. Let's get back to the start bench cut.
Okay.
The first one's going to be 3 goaltenders.
Okay.
Dustin Wolf, Lucas Dostal, and Spencer Knight.
Start bench cut.
Yeah.
And
Kenny hasn't heard these either because I thought of them like 2 hours ago.
Oh God. Lucas Dostal, every time he's playing a game, he always makes a ton of saves. He seems like he's having more success in Anaheim now. I would say start him. Maybe this is controversial. I'd bench Dustin Wolf and I'd cut Spencer Knight. Not that I don't believe in Spencer Knight at all, but I really think Dustin Wolf has shown he's a winner at every level. Maybe I'm a bit biased because I covered him for a bit, but he's a winner at every level. And I even in spite of his size, he's proven that he's again, he's a winner, and that Calgary is probably right to bet a lot of money on him. I know they don't have a great team in front of him, but I do think that Dustin Wolf has proven to be an NHL caliber goaltender. And if the Flames made the playoffs last year, he probably has a strong chance to win the Calder Trophy. Like I have no problem putting him as the number 2 guy. Spencer Knight still has a lot of promise. Wolf and Knight are the same age, but I don't know. Like as much as Spencer Knight has had a lot of that promise, I kind of would bank a little bit more on Wolf just because I think his trajectory is a lot stronger than Knight's right now.
Interesting.
Maybe I'm wrong, but like you're asking for quick fire, so I would put Wolf as second.
And I honestly didn't even do any digging myself, so I like your arguments on them. I would have to do more digging myself. Kenny, any immediate thoughts on that one?
For what it's worth, Spencer Knight is having a better year right now, 260, 910 versus a 287, 900. But I mean, again, I'm biased because I've covered Dustin Wolf before, and I also think the quality. Chicago has a Connor Bedard. Calgary does not.
No,
for what it's worth. You know,
they might have a Gavin McKenna later.
We don't know. We don't even know.
For me, it's hard for me not to be biased as well. Spencer Knight, Connecticut, Avon Old Farms
too,
alum.
yeah.
So I still
he
think
is an Avon Farms alum.
Yes,
Jonathan Quick is also an Avon Farms alum.
Yes, he is.
George Springer is also one there too.
Yeah, Trevor Zegras. There's another name. Yeah.
Yeah, so there's a lot of Connecticut guys from there. Nick Bonino's one.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm missing somebody. But yeah, I wrote a story on this. So that's why I know all these NHL players were there.
Yeah. Well, I got you with the Nick Heaton one. You got me with the Avon Old Farms knowledge.
Avon Old Farms, man. Yeah.
That is a pull right there.
That is a pull.
Yeah, I think I would definitely agree with Dostal being number 1, and then maybe I'm biased, but I put Knight number 2, and then Wolf 3. It's also like I don't know how much West Coast hockey I'm watching, especially NHL stuff. So maybe
Dustin Wolf as a like just even though he's a small guy, do not let the size fool you. Just in terms of his athleticism, he's also gotten way better with tracking the puck too. Like this guy's a stud, and he's proven that at the Western Hockey League level, at the AHL level. And the fact that he's been given this opportunity to be a number 1 goaltender in the NHL already, like there's a reason why the Flames are giving him that opportunity. The team in front of him is not as good, but Dustin Wolf does a lot to kind of just have people, I mean, not even do that, but I would say that Dustin Wolf does a lot to kind of take a lot of the burden on his back to help them to whatever wins he can get them to get.
Yeah, for sure. I think he's going to do a lot for Calgary to maybe stall that rebuild a little bit more than they
I don't
wanted
know
to.
I don't know if he's going to stall the rebuild, but I do think that he's a piece worth building around.
Absolutely. He's definitely a core guy for them. And then the other one I came up with, two of them are probably going to hit a little home for you, especially with the Olympic rosters that just came out.
Sure.
Celebrini, Bedard, and Leo Carlson.
Start Celebrini. Bedard and Carlson's hard. Carlson's a stud. He has the size, physical, not really physical, but size and skill. Bedard is just like a star. Oh my god. Celebrini.
You got me last time, so
sure. I would say. Oh my god. Bedard bench, Carlson cut. Carlson's really good though, but Connor Bedard is like that's box office. But Celebrini's first.
That's probably my initial thought as well. And then of course I got Dom jumping in. Julian, just give Bruins fans more reason to hype up DiPietro, which
sure.
Basically just tell Bruins fans that you guys want Korpisalo back. That's all it takes. That's it.
Nah. You had one more?
Those were the two that I came up with.
Oh, okay, all right.
They just kind of popped in my head when I was driving home, and I was like, he got me last time. So
if I ever do this again, I have to hit you with like 4 now?
Well, it doesn't have to be.
Is that what this is? I did one, you give me 2, we got to double it every time. Double it and pass it to the next person.
So I can't thank you enough for coming on, though. I'm excited to dive back into the book. I don't think I've ever said that about a book ever again, ever until now. I mostly just watch hockey. I don't really read much, but I'm thrilled to jump back into this one, and I can't wait to see what other stories are in there. You've got me hyped up to read the Carnegie one, Herb story. That one might have jumped up a little bit more on. I like the fact that I can jump around too. You know?
I think I'm starting to realize now, in talking to people who already have copies of this seems like a book where people are just going to look through the book and find people that they're interested in. They could just jump into whatever. There's no like linear storyline that kind of follows throughout the book. So like you could legit open it and be like, oh, there's a player I like. I'm going to go to him, even though it's chapter 10. So that's actually, it's not something I thought about when I was putting this book together, but you could totally do that.
Yeah, nice little happy accident right there for you.
Yeah, that's cool.
But it's great though, because if someone like if I want to lend a copy to someone, and because they just want to read one player, or if they only have interest in one player, you know what I mean, like that, everybody has their own interest. I think one story will lead you into wanting to read the other ones, like and it's funny because when I was looking through, I think it was online that you posted the contents page. And I was looking through it and I was like, all right, I wanted, like, immediately I was like, I got to read the Willie O'Ree story first.
Yeah.
Just as a Bruins fan, I got to do that. And then as I read that one, I'm like, well, Iggy was on the Bruins. We talked about the trade that didn't happen before. I'm like, I got to read Iginla's, so it's like this one makes me want to go to this one. And then it's like, now you're jumping from era to era. And then you're like, wait a minute, this player played between them. So what did they go through? And
yeah, exactly.
You might read it out of order, but it doesn't matter. You can. So that was pretty cool to me. So, Kenny, you got any other questions or thoughts for Julian as we round this last little bit out here?
Yeah. So, I mean, Vladimir Nikitin. No, we're good. We're good. I'm good. We're good. I asked my Vladimir Nikitin question, so I'm pretty happy.
You tapped out on that one, huh?
That's good. That's good.
Julian, if you could just plug your stuff, let people know where to find you, find the book, etc., and we will all get out of here. It's been a long day for everybody. I know we're all exhausted.
Subscribe to The Athletic, subscribe to The Chris Johnston Show, and pre-order Black Aces wherever you get books.
Awesome. And thanks everyone for tuning in. We will see you all again very, very soon. Have a great evening.